All right, in this question, we have some data about video game sales for the game Quest for More Side Quests, which was released in the year 2005, took off and sold a lot very quickly, and then slowed down in sales. So our data gives us these sales in thousands of units sold for each year since 2005, starting in year 2006. So starting 1 year after the game was released. So this is the data that we're going to use. We want to find a logarithmic regression equation of the form y equals a plus b ln x for the data in the table. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got Desmos calculator open over here. So I want to copy my data, just the numerical data part, not the header rows. And I'm going to copy that into my clipboard using Control C. Then I'm going to come over here into the Desmos graph, and I'm going to use Control V to get my data inserted into the Desmos graph. Now, if you need to, you can, of course, type the data into a table. You can always add a table in Desmos with this plus symbol and table. So you can do that if you have any trouble with the copy paste. But when you can copy and paste it, that's generally going to be the easiest way to get the data in there. So I can see my data now over here in a scatter plot. And in part A, it says, find the logarithmic regression equation of the form y equals a plus b ln x. So I'm going to use the built-in logarithmic regression function in Desmos, go up here and add regression. I click on that, and the default regression is going to be a linear regression, so I can take a quick look at that, but we're specifically told to use a logarithmic regression. So I'm going to drop down the menu here and go to logarithmic regression. I'm also going to toggle into log mode. So we're always going to use log mode in Desmos for either logarithmic or exponential regressions. That's what MyOpenMath will be expecting in the answers. Okay, and I can see the R squared here is 0.9185, so pretty high. I can see visually that it looks like a pretty good fit. And it gives me the logarithmic regression equation for this curve of best fit right here. So I'm going to enter this equation, being careful to pay attention to my rounding instructions, rounding the parameter values to 3 decimal places. Okay, so that's my logarithmic regression function. Now I'm going to use the stored regression equation to predict the sales in thousands of units of Quest for More Side Quests in 2014. So in other words, I want to evaluate this regression equation. I want to evaluate that to predict the sales in 2014. So what should the input value x, my independent variable, be in order to find the function value for the year 2014? Well, 2014 is 9 years since 2005. So I'm going to use x equal 9. I'm going to go over here to my regression output. I could just type the function down below, but there's an easier way. I can click on the snapshot icon right here, and it drops the equation down into the calculator list. Now, it wants me to use the stored regression equation. So that means using this equation that I found in part A. That's rounded parameters to 3 decimal places. So I'm just going to do the same over here. I'm going to round the parameters to 3 decimal places before I use this to predict a value. So we said that x equals 9 for the year 2014. So in the Desmos equation, I changed the value of x to 9. And so that gives me my result. And now I want to round that result to 3 decimal places. Also, notice that we were told here to predict the sales in thousands of units. So the answer that I'm entering here is the units that are given by the regression model, thousands of units. Pay close attention to the units here because our y variables are in thousands of units, and that's going to be relevant both for part B and now also for part C. In part C, it says use the graph of the regression model. Use the graph of the regression model to predict when the sales of the game will be 170,800 units. round to the nearest year. So here we're looking for the year at which the output, the Y value, is going to be 170.8. Again, remember the Y value here is in thousands of units, but here we're given units. First of all, I want to convert that value to thousands of units. That's an output value of the regression equation. I'm told specifically to use the graph. So how can I use the graph over here to find the value of X? X will tell me the when Y is equal to 170.8. Well, the easiest way to do this using the graph is first to plot the horizontal line Y equals 170.8. That's the output value of my regression equation when sales are 170,800 units. Again, because Y is in thousands of units. Now, I want to find the X value on my regression equation when that's my Y value. So let me go over here and look where the curves intersect. Now in Desmos, if I click anywhere near that, it's going to show me the intersection point. And so when I see that intersection point, I can see the X coordinate of the intersection point. The X coordinate represents the number of years since 2005. So the X coordinate, as I can see here, when Y equals 170.8, which represents sales of 170,800 units, the X coordinate is about 10. 10 means 10 years since 2005. And so that's going to give me the year 2015.